Top of the motherfucking morning to you, my friends. Welcome one, welcome all to my podcast, Alexandra Unfiltered, a show where we hypothesize, theorize, and analyze all about women's rights, women's wrongs, and everything in between. I am your gracious host, Alexandra Rose, a bad bee with a law degree, simply doing what I do best. Ranting, raving, whining, and complaining. And not necessarily in that order. I am here to lead you down the primrose path of patriarchal pitfalls, one step at a motherfucking time, okay? Before we dive in today, please don't forget to like and subscribe wherever and however you are streaming this podcast. I thank you so much for your support, and I thank you in advance for running it up in the comments, for leaving feedback, for sharing, etc., etc. Hearing back from you guys kind of lets me know that I'm not just screaming into the void, and I'm not just shouting into the nether. Essentially, it's nice being reminded that there are actual human beings who listen to my never-ending yap sessions on the state of women's rights in these here United States of America. So please do support publicly however you can, and thank you so much for tuning in today. Today's topic, I'm going to do a part 2 essentially on something I've discussed before, because today I am discussing the Sassy Man Apocalypse Part 2. The Menfolk Want to Be Women. Okay. I decided to do a part 2 of this topic in light of some recent pop culture events surrounding the wildly successful, popular, and very handsome music producer Metro Boomin, who is an Atlanta-based producer who has worked with some of your favorite and my favorite artists to produce some very legendary music and tracks, etc., right? And please do not be confused about why I'm using this phrase, the men folk want to be women. Please understand I'm not saying this to slight our transgender brothers and sisters at all. I certainly hope that my content speaks for itself in terms of positioning myself as an ally to the LGBTQIA questioning plus community and to our alphabet brothers and sisters. When I'm saying that the men folk want to be women, I'm not saying that as in a derogatory, condescending manner towards transgender women who have transitioned from being identified as male at birth. So please do not be confused. Please do not be misled. Why I am using, this title will make sense as we go along, right? So, talking about the wildly successful, also very handsome Metro Boomin, the music producer artist. He recently hosted an event at an Atlanta nightclub. I'm not sure if he was celebrating a birthday or if he was celebrating a new album release, but essentially he was doing his thing. He had his DJ set up on the stage with his turntables and his equipment and his technology, and he was there essentially to host this party and to, produce or make a set essentially to entertain at this nightclub, right? The issue became that out of nowhere, a bunch of menfolk who were in attendance of this party decided to storm the stage and essentially move themselves from the main, dance floor of this venue and basically bum rush the stage where Metro Boomin is standing and performing and, hosting and doing his thing, right? And it wasn't the kind of party where, the host Metro decided, hey everyone, I want you guys to come bum rush the stage and come stand on stage with me. He didn't hold up his mic and invite his audience to do that. Rather, these individuals who are in attendance at this party arbitrarily decided that they were going to rush the stage, push past Metro's security, and uninvited, unprovoked, rush the stage, right? And so Metro kind of looks around. He's like, okay, I didn't ask y'all to be on the stage. Please get off the stage so I can continue my set. Otherwise, my security is going to remove you. The menfolk in question don't move. They stand there. And here's the kicker. Here's what gets me. They're on this stage with Metro, and you would think, I don't know, maybe they thought I would think that a bunch of grown adult men in a nightclub all brushed up against one another, if they were going to bum rush a stage where a very popular, very famous artist is performing, are they trying to freestyle for him to see if they can get a record deal or something? Or no, do you know what those men on that stage were doing? They had their phones out, and they were just recording themselves I guess, for their social media following, whatever, I don't know. And they just had their phones out recording themselves while they, you know, kind of bum rush the stage. While chaos is reigning, Metro is in the microphone, please get off the stage. His security's trying to move through this small crowd that's on this very tiny platform of a stage, and to, you know, kind of move them off the stage and get them out of the way without inciting mass violence, essentially, without resorting to gun violence or overt physical violence. And they're ignoring Metro, telling them, get off my fucking stage. And just standing there, looking at one another, looking at the four walls, looking at the ceiling, looking at Metro security, looking at the crowd, looking in their cell phones, and just literally just standing there. And when I say it was a group of them, I want to say, based on the videos I've seen on social media, it's like 10 to 15 dudes on like a really small platform stage that is, most of which is taken up by Metro's set. Because if you've ever been to a club or to a house party, when you have a professional like DJ there, they have an entire like giant turntable, they have their computer, they have expensive microphone and sound system equipment and things like that. So the stage is already kind of small, and it's already taken up by most of Metro's equipment because he's there to perform. He didn't ask people to come join his stage. It's not that type of party. And to be very honest with you, I really don't think Metro, being a very popular, very successful music producer, would want grown-ass adult men bum rushing his stage unprovoked and just standing there taking selfies with him, because Metro is not that kind of guy, okay? He's there for the ladies, right? And these men were acting like ladies would have acted in that situation. They were essentially acting like groupies. They were acting like floozies, just standing around on the stage, ignoring Metro's demands that they get off the stage, ignoring his security, trying to maneuver them off of the stage, and just standing there, staring around, taking pictures of one another like they were groupies. It was like a scene out of like a reverse engineered Twilight Zone type episode, right? So after a few minutes of this back and forth of them not getting off the stage, the club turned the lights on to try to kind of flush them out. The music stopped playing. So all you hear is Metro on the microphone telling them, hey man, get off the fucking stage. I'm doing my set. Get off the fucking stage. I'm gonna have to get security to get you off. They don't budge. Metro gets fed up and throws up his hands and says, fuck it. I'll leave. I will leave the establishment. I will leave the stage. I will exit the premises and leave y'all individuals standing around looking at each other. And he did exactly that. He ended the event early and left. He and his security exited the premises. He walked off the stage and left the wannabe groupies standing there, looking at each other, looking at the four walls, looking at the ceiling, looking at their cell phones, essentially. So this entire event has sparked so much discourse in the interwebs and in social media spaces, because it really points to many, many different phenomena going on all at once, right? One observation I immediately picked out as a 32-year-old millennial myself is that men who want to be women groupies, or menfolk who want to be women, they're the reasons why club culture has died a very horrible, violent, really sad death. Because once upon a time, you went to the club to dance and to party, and the clubs were catered to the ladies because smart club owners, smart establishment owners, smart promoters understand that wherever you attract women, and especially beautiful women, beautiful young women who are looking to get drunk and shake ass, you're going to attract men, you're going to attract talent who will perform and bring a bigger crowd, you're going to attract popular, positive media presence when you cater your event or your celebration to the ladies, right? I recall a day where going to the club was ladies free before 11, open bar, drinks you had $2 drink specials, $5 drink specials, and the club actually had a dance floor because the club was somewhere you went to dance. You went to be seen at the club. We were too busy dancing and sweating in our Charlotte Russe high-heeled pumps and our Forever 21 mini dresses to really be worried about being on our phones as much, or to really be worried about being on social media to impress social media followers. We went to the club to meet people, to meet guys, right, and trade numbers, and to dance with our girlfriends, right? And the club was catered to us, so it was easy to go and have fun, right? Today, the club is a completely different landscape. They've closed off the dance floor, and instead of the dance floor, you have sections where you have to pay hundreds of dollars to get a section with a really cheap looking chair that they call a booth. And then in order to get liquor, you have to book a section first and then pay for the liquor on top of that. So accessing the bar is not as like open access as it used to be in a dance club, excuse me, right? So you're shelling out. There's no more ladies free before 11. Drinks are ridiculously expensive. There's no dance floor to like go and shake your ass, basically, right? And the DJs themselves, who kind of work with the party promoters and the club owners, they've changed as well. If you go to clubs, you'll notice that DJs aren't playing shake your ass music, right? And it's not that, you know, music to shake your ass isn't being produced or made. Hello, Megan Thee Stallion, Sexy Red, City Girls, so many of the lady rappers who are just out here and eating the men up, right? Who make shake your ass music. The DJs are playing the mumble rap music from the male rappers who don't make shake your ass music anymore. They make mumble rap music, and it's music that you listen to in the car while cruising. It's not music for a club where you want people to dance, right? So no dance floor, expensive ass access to liquor, and the young people today, when they go to the club, no one's dancing. They're just standing around doing a little shoulder shimmy. Everyone's on their phone, holding up their phone to record themselves for their 57 social media followers. And that's the event. That's the nightclub now. So expensive, out of touch, no more sweating and dancing, no access to cheap liquor so you can get a nice little buzz going and make some memories, no shake your ass music. And more than anything, you know, because that's the environment of the club now, the ladies, you know, we're not going to the clubs anymore. We don't really even go to bars that often either. I notice, like, we'll socialize at a restaurant and go to dinner with our girlfriends and then like order a drink. But going to the club is not the fun that it used to be anymore, where you wait in line outside. And again, ladies free before 11, shake your ass music, cheap liquor available. Dudes were at the club to impress the ladies, so they would show up and they're buying the whole round of drinks for everybody in the club at the bar. Someone sends you a drink while you're there cooling off in between one of your favorite songs, and you're shaking ass with your girlfriends, and you might meet a cute guy or two and trade some numbers, right? That's not the scene anymore. And why is it not the scene anymore? Because those places are now specifically catering to male audiences, right? So they maybe made the mistake or made the assumption of thinking that it's men who are the ones that drive the popularity of those places and those venues and those kinds of events, and they're sorely mistaken. If you want people to show up anywhere, you need to cater that event to women. Because with women come other women, we bring our friends, and then where there are lots of women, there are going to be men who want to see these women and want to see these ladies and want to impress them, right? And are going to tell their friends and their friends and their friends, man, there's some fine ass ladies out here tonight. You better get out of the house, bro, put something on. And, you know, I don't know, I guess that's how young people talk. I'm a 32-year-old spinster, so I don't know, forgive me, right? But that used to be the scene, right? Music and entertainment from the male artists cater to the women, because where you attract women, you attract more women who bring their friends, and then you attract men who want to impress the women. So it's a win-win all around. The scene today, however, is run by DJs and club promoters and club owners who are incels. Oh my. Who are incels, basically. They either slightly align with incel culture, they slightly align with red pill culture in some way. So they're not interested in catering to the female gaze. They're not interested in catering to ladies or anything like that. They're interested in impressing other men. So that observation brings me to my next observation, which is that the menfolk want to be women today, not because of this inherent admiration or respect for women and womanhood and femininity. The menfolk want to be women today because they want to get men's attention that the womenfolk receive by virtue of just existing as women, right? So these men today, these specifically unhealed, insecure, incel aligning kind of men, because I know it's not all men before everyone, you know, gets your white tidy whities in a bunch. Oh my God, relax, calm down, sit down, unclench those sphincter muscles, right? These unhealed, insecure, incel aligning men have always envied the attention that women receive from other men, right? Because ultimately, what they put on a pedestal, ultimately what they respect more than anything is men's admiration, is men's respect, right? And if women are receiving attention from men, then that is attention that we as women are diverting away from other men, right? And understand these incel kind of individuals don't make the distinction that not all male attention is good attention, and the attention, quote unquote, we're receiving from men is usually followed by some kind of harassment or physical assault or sexual assault, God forbid, right? So they don't make that distinction, because what they're looking at is, well, these ladies, these women get to live free, soft lives just by, being born with a vagina and tits and a pretty face. And they get to be rappers' baby mamas and athletes' baby mamas and get to live their best lives, and all they have to do is spread their legs or bend over, and boom, they get attention, they get all these likes on social media, they get all these follows, they get dudes in their DMs, they get men who want to fund their lifestyles. That's what's getting to them. And yes, it is that serious, right? You see them on different social media platforms saying things like, well, what about men in our soft life? We don't get to have a soft life. Nobody wants to take care of us. Nobody wants to fund our lifestyles. Who set that system up? Who set that system up that said men have to be providers and protectors? That was men who did that. And that's men today who enforce that system and uplift that system, right? That's not the women doing that. So these unhealed, insecure men today view the attention that women get from men as something to envy and something to be jealous of, right? So it's not from a place of admiration, whereas, oh my gosh, ladies are just so incredible and so wonderful in their womanhood and their femininity. I just want to uphold and uplift and support that femininity, and whatever I have to do to get the ladies in my circle on my side, if I have to buy a drink, if I have to do a little shopping spree, that's nothing. They don't think like that. Okay, they're thinking, how can I get a man to do that for me, what they do for other women? Right? I obviously am not someone who has a vagina. This is how they speak, right? I'm not someone who has a vagina. I can't have a baby, but I want the attention that women get from other men. Please understand, anytime you're dealing with an insecure, unhealed, incel aligning, red pill kind of aligning kind of man, and he expresses any kind of jealousy or envy at the fact that you receive attention from people in public, or positive comments about your looks or about your style or about your outfits, or literally anything, your hair or your nails, the way you put yourself together, etc. Understand, what he is envious of has nothing to do with the basic attention. What really gets him is that he knows you're going to get attention from men, and that's just not right with him. He wants that attention from men because men ultimately respect other men, and men ultimately respect attention from other men and admiration from other men, right? So third observation that I see with this phenomenon, the menfolk want to be women, is that these unhealed, insecure men have absolutely failed to adapt to our changing society. And it makes sense in context, because these insecure, unhealed men subscribe to a very rigid form of masculinity and patriarchy. Their manhood, their manliness, their entire sense of identity is predicated upon a very strict set of masculine patriarchal standards that have no room for flexibility, adjustment, or adaptation. Okay? And their manhood and their identity is predicated entirely upon their ability to oppress and subjugate women specifically, right? It starts with women, but other individuals who are deemed as weak or ineffective, or individuals who lack power in some way, right? So if you are someone who subscribes to a very strict, rigid set of patriarchal, manly ideals, then in a landscape where what it means to be a man is changing, there's no room for those individuals. They're being left behind. These insecure, unhealed men are being left behind because their set of standards for how they view themselves has no room for change, right? Contrast women. Now, women of any ilk, race, ethnicity, nationality, religion, age, sexual orientation or gender identity will tell you our womanhood is always in a state of flux. It's always in a state of change. It's static. It's not dynamic. So our womanhood changes with life events, whether we decide to become mothers, whether transgender women decide to go through with sex reassignment surgery or what they call bottom surgery, whether we decide to become celibate, whether we decide to become married, whether we decide to stay single. Our womanhood and what it means to be a woman and how we identify and express our womanhood and identity is always in a state of change. And it has to be for our own survival, because our womanhood is defined by patriarchal societal standards. And those standards, women, you know that those standards change every other day. They change like the wind. They change like you and I change socks. Okay? One day, the right woman to be is a soft, nurturing, maternal figure who has children and who's married. The next day, that same woman is a lazy stay-at-home mom who is demanding and is sucking her husband dry of resources because she won't get up and go work. One day, the right way to be a woman is a thin, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, super skinny, tall model, supermodel. The next day, the right way to be a woman is a full-figured, voluptuous girl. The next day, you can't be too voluptuous. The next day, you can't be blonde. You should actually be brunette. The next day, the right kind of woman to be is a white woman. And the next day, you can't be too white. You should actually be a dark-haired, ethnic white woman. And then, you know, if you're a black woman, then the right kind of woman to be is light-skinned, but then you can't identify as black if you're light or mixed race. But if you're dark-skinned, then that's unacceptable and undesirable. I say all of those examples to point out just exactly how much static surrounds defining womanhood. And that is why, as women, we're actually in a place of strength in these changing societal times, because we're already accustomed to having to adapt. We're already accustomed to having to change and to redefine our womanhood and to redefine our femininity. Changing and adapting in light of political climates, changing and adapting in light of shifting social values and beliefs is nothing. We do that every day anyway. Like, from the moment we open our eyes in the morning after we wake up, we have to decide, okay, what kind of woman am I going to be today? How am I going to present myself today? Because the first thing I have to do is I have to go to work in a male-dominated environment. So I have to kind of cater my womanhood to survive that environment so I can still get my work done, still get paid while still maintaining my dignity and my mental well-being. Then after that, I have to take public transportation to get home. So I have to be a woman who protects herself, and I have to have a resting bitch face. I have to walk around with my pepper spray or my bear spray. I have to be hyper aware of my surroundings because I'm a woman taking public transportation, and I have to be aware of my vulnerabilities. Then when I get home, I have to decide, okay, am I going to be a woman who is celibate? Am I going to be a woman who is pursuing romantic relationships? What does that look like for me? What are my needs? What are my wants? What are my desires? Do you see what I'm saying? That is normal for us women. That is a normal everyday life experience in terms of changing and adapting and having to conform. Everyday women, especially Black women, women of color, disabled women, and LGBTQ women, but women in general, especially every day, we have to redefine what womanhood and femininity looks like for us. The shifting sands of time are shifting every single second of every single day for us women. So it's nothing to change in light of changing societal values and beliefs. So club culture isn't a thing anymore? Okay, well then that's fine. My girlfriends and I don't go to the club anymore. We go out to eat. We grab a nice bite to eat and have a cute little mixed drink and take the little Instagram boomerang picture that goes on your stories, right? And then maybe we go shopping together, or maybe we schedule and plan a trip together to travel. Maybe we get a spa day together. So we just adapt and change. That's it. That's all. Men, insecure, unhealed men have only one way to be a man. There's only one way to express manliness and to express manhood and to obey the patriarchal standards set forth. There's only one right way to do that, and there is no room for change. So while society has changed, and while laws have changed, and beliefs and values have changed to accommodate women now having unforeseen, like previously unforeseen agency and autonomy over our decisions and our choices, right? The men refuse to change. It's not that they can't change. It's not that other men haven't changed and adapted to this shifting landscape. They don't want to. Why? Because observation number 4, the menfolk who want to be women do not want to accept and admit that society has fundamentally altered the power balance that now somewhat favors women, right? The patriarchy is still very real, but women have a choice to opt out now. These insecure, unhealed men do not want to accept that and do not want to adapt, just out of sheer refusal. Why don't they want to adapt? Because adapting and changing their definitions of manhood and patriarchy and manliness, in their minds, that's a loss. That's admitting defeat. How could I do that? How could I say that I can be a man just in a different expression? I don't want to do that. That would mean that I lose. I would lose my power. I would lose the control I can exercise over women in my life and women around me. I would lose my foothold on everything I know that I hold near and dear to me, that essentially makes up the foundations of who I am as a man and as a person, and I refuse to do that. That is why you see them making so many contradictory claims on their social media pages about how they want women to submit to them and they want to be heads of household and leaders, but they can't lead themselves to fill out a job application. They can't lead themselves to sit in someone's classroom and get a college degree. They can't lead themselves to enlist in the military. They can't lead themselves to be an entrepreneur and like an actual legitimate entrepreneur or sole proprietor, not just one who has CEO in one of their social media bios. They can't lead themselves into social movements. They can't lead themselves into running for office. They can't lead themselves into any fucking where but a fucking ditch, right? They're perfectly content making those contradictory claims about wanting to essentially to be providers, and they want women to be submissive providers, basically, right? They're perfectly content making those contradictory claims. Because in keeping the standards inherently contradictory, the standards that women are expected to abide by, if the patriarchal power structure keeps those standards inherently confusing and, you don't know if one day you're supposed to be feminine, if the next day you're in your masculine energy, whatever the fuck, then you're confused and you're always like in a state of confusion. You don't know what to do and you don't know what rules to abide by, and confusion is loss of power, right? The Bible even says, confuse the enemy when you're trying to win, right? So if you're confused all the time as to what your womanhood looks like, all the better for someone who's in power, and all the better for men who hold patriarchal power. But if instead you are under no confusions about your womanhood, about your femininity, about your identity, and you are not under the impression that, your femininity or your womanhood or what have you, is defined by, literally anything else, then what do you have to worry about? You're comfortable with change. You're comfortable with adaptation. You're comfortable with, being comfortable, right? So the men can't handle that. They don't want to change because changing would be admitting losing power. Whereas women, we have to change anyway to survive these patriarchal landscapes. We have to change. We have to adapt in order to keep the needle moving forward. So it's nothing to us. And how do you see this shift in power play out? You see it in the things like the events where Metro was trying to host. You see it in the death of club culture, where insecure, unhealed, incel aligning, red pill aligning men no longer are interested in catering to the female gaze, because that would mean admitting that women have power and actually have always held the power, essentially, right? So they want to cater to the male gaze, and the male gaze isn't anything to cater to, because as we women know, male attention is not really good. It's usually followed by some form of violence, interpersonal, sexual, physical, economic, like literally, right? That's how you see these things play out. You see these things play out at an event where Metro is on the stage and it's a bunch of men bum rushing the stage and crowding Metro, even after he's yelling at them and telling them to get the fuck off my stage and threatening to get security. And not even the big buff security dudes could get them to move, because in their minds they were intent on, no, I see all these bitches on Instagram, all these bitches on social media be out here and they get rappers' attentions, and they get everything they want for free, and they get to live soft lives, and they ain't got to do nothing but open their fucking legs. So I want to do that. I'm going to take away their power, and I'm going to take away their attention. And I'm going to film myself standing next to the rapper because he wants to be next to me and I want to be next to him. I'm the one who he's catering to. I'm the one who's his target audience. Not you bitches. Me, because I'm the man with the power, with the ding-a-ling. And my ding-a-ling works. So that's what matters in this fucking atmosphere. That's how they think. It's like one long run-on sentence, just hot air coming out of their mouths, excuse me. There's a saying that has been passed down in my family that empty barrels make the most noise. And that's what we're dealing with these insecure, unhealed men. Empty barrels banging around, making a whole lot of noise, and not saying anything worthwhile. Hot air. What's my time? Hot air, right? Very embarrassing. 0 out of 10 would recommend. So the menfolk want to be women in ways that are very alarming and very scary, and ways that we need to examine, essentially. So I say all of this to remind women exactly what our power is, right? I was on TikTok, on social media the other day, and I made a video where I said the reason why people are panicking about the declining, quote unquote, declining birth rate has less to do with anything except the fact that it's women who have so much autonomy and agency and choice now that we can choose to make the birth rate decline by not having children. And that's what's setting them into a panic, is that this declining birth rate is the physical manifestation of women having unprecedented autonomy and rights and decision-making power with respect to our reproductive choices. If this declining birth rate were declining as the result of some kind of famine or some kind of health event like a plague or a pandemic, or something, then that would be a different story. The response would be different. Instead, this declining birth rate is essentially manifesting and showing the entire world what women have already kind of secretly known all this time, is that women are the cornerstones of human civilization. Because the minute we decide to opt out of patriarchal society's expectations in any way, shape, or form, whether that opting out is through celibacy, whether that opting out is through having sex but taking contraceptives, or having sex but your tubes are tied, etc., so you don't have children, or delaying motherhood, or only having one kid, or not getting married and deciding to, have a child on your own with the support of your village. The minute that women have the power to decide to not do these things is the minute that civilization suffers. And if all it took was just women having access to rights and privileges, or actually human rights that we're born with, if all it took was women having that for the birth rate to start declining, then the societies in which those birth rates are declining were never set up to succeed anyway. Those societies were designed and set up to fail. If all it takes is women saying, okay, I'm not going to have children, or okay, I'm going to delay motherhood, or I'm going to only have one kid, and society crumbles, then that society didn't deserve to stand in the first place. If motherhood and continuing the human civilization is that fucking important to the people in power, then they should better fucking act like it and start legislating things like paid maternal leave and universal health care and universal basic income and universal guaranteed housing and universal food sources as well, etc., etc. If continuing human civilization is that fucking important, then fucking act like it. That's why they're panicking. And that is why we see more menfolk who want to be womenfolk today. Essentially, they want to harness the power that they have always known women have had, except in this very unique time period, we are uninhibited with how we are expressing that power and how that power is manifesting and playing out on a world stage, because these things aren't happening in small little tiny pockets of the world where, we didn't have social media to basically display this kind of phenomenon. This is happening for all the world to see. So the men are like, wait, so they had the power all this time. They now know that they've had the power all this time and have the power now. Well, I want to take some of that power, because them having power means that I, as a man, do not have power over them. And that's a threat to my existence. That's a threat to my identity and my manhood. So I'm going to take their power from them in the only way I know how, which is through perceived acts of violence, pretending to do things that I perceive women do to success. So they've seen women be groupies to popular musicians and artists and rappers and athletes And in their minds, we're successful because we get the attention of the man and we get his funds and maybe get his funds and get the accolades and get all the attention from society because you're the woman on his arm or you're one of his floozies, groupies, baby mamas, girlfriends, ex-wives, etc. So they're like, that's power because that's attention from men. And maybe that's why they have all this power now, is because it's coming from men. So let me take it from them and get it from the men instead. No, honey. It's not coming from the men. It's not coming from the powerful, wealthy men. It's not coming from the regular, degular, schmegular dudes. Women have always been inherently powerful. The only difference is every single society on this planet was deliberately and intentionally structured so that women did not have the agency or the autonomy to act on that power. That's it. That's all. And y'all are weird too. Y'all are creepy. I'll just say that too. You're on social media and instead of using your big grown man skills and effort and testosterone, you're over here asking strangers on the internet why men don't get soft life. Please shut the fuck up and go get a job. I have read reports in Business Insider and in the Wall Street Journal that the trades, all the blue collar type work are experiencing like unprecedented staff shortages, and all the old heads who work in those fields are retiring, and there are not a plethora of young men coming up behind them to assume the work. And I'm seeing all these reports about the military saying that enlistment numbers are historically low, etc. Please go get your CDL. We need electricians and plumbers. We need car repair mechanics, etc. We need truck drivers. We need HVAC technicians. We need linemen to go work on those cable and electricity lines and things like that. And they need men to go work on those oil rigs and things like that. Please go do that and put the phone down and leave that for the ladies and for the women folk, because for so long, social media, or for a while, I would say, social media and all the things women do on social media with taking pictures of ourselves and recording ourselves and having YouTube channels dedicated to beauty related topics, that was seen as inherently feminine and girly and worthless and stupid because women did it. And now that women get positive feedback from overall society and get paid to do these things now here you have men who are male influencers. I can't take y'all seriously. I'm sorry. You want to be a man and you want me to abide by these very strict patriarchal standards. You first. You first, okay? If I'm supposed to abide by and subscribe to these very rigid, strict set of patriarchal ideals for what I'm supposed to look like, sound like, etc., you first. You lead the way. You're the leader. You're the man, right? You want to be respected and acknowledged as a man in this society, and you only want to be respected and acknowledged as a man by other women and by other men, then set the stage. Lead by example, right? Gentlemen first. Don't come and tell me how I should be a woman and then envy me for my inherent woman energy, basically, and the quote-unquote attention I receive from men and from other women and from society that you attribute to my just being a woman, but you don't ever attribute it to my skill, to my education, to my personality. Yeah, maybe I have a decent social media following because people like what I have to say and I know how to string a sentence together. I know how to uniquely combine my education with popular pop culture topics, right? Did it ever occur to you that that's a skill? Did it ever occur to men that the women who have YouTube beauty channels have a skill in makeup artistry and also video editing and marketing? Those are skills, babe. I don't just wake up and turn my phone on and voila. No, babe, we take notes. We plan what we're going to discuss on our social media pages, right? We're very targeted and very strategic. And you just assume because we look pretty doing it that, behind the prettiness, there's nothing there. And I'm sorry to tell you, maybe, for men, handsome men are dumb, but pretty women are pretty and smart. Maybe you handsome, big, clunky, hunky men are just accustomed to stupidity because that's all you know amongst one another. You're all fucking dumbasses. How you had a 1,000-year stronghold on society and within the past 50 years it went to shit. That's on you. No. Sorry, not sorry. And that concludes today's episode about the Sassy Man Apocalypse Part 2, The Menfolk Want to Be Women, right? If you enjoyed this episode, I would really appreciate if you leave comments indicating as much. If you have your own personal experiences man or woman watching this phenomena play out of the men folk want to be women, how you've seen this play out in your own personal life. I would love if you left some comments indicating as much. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and share this podcast wherever and however you are streaming. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm so grateful to have you as part of my audience, part of my nether of the black void that I'm screaming into every week when I'm shouting into the nothingness or what have you. This has been Alexandra Rose, your favorite bad bee with a law degree, and until next time, bye bye.